from Miami, Florida, having a hangout with Ronnie Bincer and Scott. I'm sorry, Scott. I keep forgetting your last name.
Scowcroft.
Scowcroft. I'm sorry. Yes, Ronnie is a hangout king, and it's a true pleasure to have him here on the same screen. It's probably going to be the only night where I am the boss, but he's the main man tonight. He's the gentleman I was lucky enough to run into when I discovered the platform of Hangout. I went through a period of going on YouTube, going through his videos, and I was also fortunate enough to meet Marvin Shervington also, and then I ran into Ronnie's, and then I had discovered that Ronnie has a master group where he teaches basically people that want to learn the platform, and it's also that I hope Ronnie talks about the community. And I discovered that there was actually a community of people learning Hangouts, and it kind of showed me the power of how Google communities can be used. So I guess Ronnie's going to give an introduction about himself and the platform and talk a little bit, and then Scott and I are going to ask some questions after he's done. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us, and I appreciate being invited, and thanks, Scott, for joining us in the conversation as well.
Oh, thank you. Looking forward to learning from the master. I'm going to just inject this right away. We're all Ronnie's kids.
That's good. That's it. Even I heard on the Hangout, I even heard Martin say that. He said Martin, when he has a question, he goes to Ronnie.
Well, let's talk about that.
Ronnie, it's all yours, Ronnie.
Okay, let's talk about where this Hangout thing came from and what it means to you, and I'll give you a little detail of where I came from and how I fit into it as well. So actually, we'll start with that part. I came from a background of being a trainer. So I've trained people for a long, long time on using software, computer software, so I guess I'm a nerd at heart. And when the Google Plus platform came out, I had just recently gone through one career phase, which was called Video Search Engine Optimization. I was a SEO guy focused on video. And that brought me to the place where when Google Plus first came out, I thought, you know, I'm going to go to this place called Google Plus. It's new, it's made by Google, and Google is really, really important if you're involved with SEO or search engine optimization, so that's why I thought I'd spend some time here. Then I discovered it had a video conversation tool, which is what we're doing now. It's a lot like Skype in essence, but it's a Skype program in the middle of a huge social network. And even though some people will poo-poo the size of it, I think in my mind 300 million plus strong is a pretty big number. So the space is Google Plus, the tool is Hangouts, and it's one of their killer apps. It's one of the biggest tools within their program of Google Plus, and the reason why is it does two things very, very well. One is it builds relationships. You can meet other people face to face without having to go to their office, without having to go to their town, or meet them at a convention. You can find someone that has a similar background or similar interests, and you can set up a meeting and meet them and talk to them and get to know them. That, to me, is huge when in this world of social media where people are just throwing things out there, just pushing it out. You can actually see what the person looks like that pushed that stuff out and start to decide whether this is someone you want to really start to interact with or not. So that to me is it's sort of a hidden benefit, but I believe it's one of the main reasons why this Hangout tool is as popular as it is. The second part is this same tool has a special method where you can turn it on and make it into a broadcast, which means doing exactly what we're doing right now. Instead of a private conversation, we are doing a live streaming broadcast that will automatically turn into a video when we're done, and people can either watch it live and interact with us while we're live, or they watch it later as a recorded video and they can leave comments and interact and share it with other people. So with those two pieces, you're building relationships with people, you have the ability to do a live broadcast, which means it's like your own TV channel. You've got so many options. I could go on and on and on for hours as to all the ways you could use it, but here's how I started to use it, and I think this is how a lot of people watching right now could use it to your benefit. I started doing consultations with people. when I would meet with them and they needed to learn a little bit more about this tool, I would meet them in the Hangout tool and we would do training. And literally I can train, and I have trained people from all over the world without ever leaving my office. So this tool not only lets me see them face to face, but it also would let me do a slide share. So if I had a bunch of PowerPoints or things that I wanted to show, or maybe images, pictures of some patient situations that I needed to show, I can show those right there on the screen. They can get a visual for what it is. We can have our discussion about what it is we're seeing on screen and make determinations of next steps. So the ability within the medical profession, in my mind, is just amazing because of the fact there's no boundaries. So if you know someone or you find someone anywhere in the world that has a knowledge that you need to get some, and they have some, and you have something you can share with them, it's very simple to meet each other and show and talk about these things that are important to you, and then grow and say, you know what, I know another gentleman or another lady that's going to really benefit from this, let me bring them in. And they can just be brought right into this communication, and whether this is a live show or it's a private conversation, you have all of these tools for free, $0, and it's going to make a huge impact if you start using it. So the ability to do all these things that I'm talking about with this Hangout tool or the Hangout on Air variety, to me, is what makes this a very, very valuable tool, and it was a natural place for me to go to because of my training background, because I did video, search engine optimization. How do I make these videos show up inside Google search when we're done? Because when we make these Hangout on Air shows, we are actually making a video. So the combination of teaching people how to use the tool and helping those videos get found made a very, very good, compelling argument for why I would focus on it. In fact, that's where I came up with my name, The Hangout Helper. And I have a website called thehangouthelper.com. So there's my intro.
Very good, Ronnie. Yeah, you open up a lot of areas of discussion. You know, and certainly I'm sure Scott will have a lot to say about why he likes to use it. But my impression when I first discovered it was probably like Scott. Wow, you can get put in the same room as someone who you would like to talk to, of course, without traveling, et cetera, but and engage in discussion. And I've been able to engage doctors all over the world very easily, and I'm just a regular MD from Miami, Florida. But I would be just, you know, talking with a famous neurosurgeon from the Netherlands about a program he wrote, and it was just totally awesome. How did you first run across it, Scott?
Well, I had been working at a hospital in their marketing department after having been with a foundation, and they had to lay some people off, and you always go to the marketing department first rather than patient-facing staff. And I had just been learning social media at the time and was very determined to figure out how it might be able to interface with medicine. So I was in a fortunate position to be able to take a year sabbatical, and I worked very hard at learning social media, and the more I learned about it, the more I was pulling my hair out. I used to have a full head of hair. I just could not understand Facebook, and it was just too big of a field of play. And then I stumbled upon Google Plus, and then Google Communities came out, and then there was the Hangout, and everything just fell into place because there's such a wonderful suite of resources and tools that all relate with each other, that build relationships and trust, and I just knew that I had found a home in Google Plus. And it wasn't long after that anyone who's involved with Hangouts on Air will eventually run across Ronnie Bincer, and the rest is history. So just became very enamored of the ability of this technology to bring people together, to be able to, instead of having a lunch and learn that you might have 20 people show up and they take 3 hours out of their day, and that's your community outreach if you're a hospital or a healthcare provider, do it, but do it in a format like this, and you can have 200 people show up, and then you have content for your website forever and ever, and it is patient education and it is community engagement. So I just don't see any downsides.
Well, one of the things, and also one of the things that Ronnie's community showed me, because initially I was drawn to it by Hangouts, and I didn't really understand the concept of what a community is and Google Plus. But after being in the mastery group for a while, I could see how people were interacting with each other. Well, for people that don't know what Google Plus is, it's basically it's a social media, but you have the ability to form community pages, and Ronnie formed one about people that want to learn about Hangouts, and I'm sure there are other people. There's another good, really good community with 3D printing of artificial hands. I believe it's called eMaker community, and it's much like the Hangout community. A bunch of people working together from all over the world. I don't know if Ronnie's demographic is the whole world, but the other one is the whole world. Engineers, people that actually have the congenital defects of not being born with a hand. They're all working together to try to get prostheses made, and people go to Ronnie's group to learn about how to do Hangouts. Just acting like a community. I hadn't seen that in the web anywhere. Have you guys seen it anywhere else? Communities being used like that?
Well, there's a similar concept inside Facebook called groups, where the primary concept is it's a topic-based gathering environment. So instead of this huge space where everybody's just talking about everything, you might find more people talking about a specific sector of information within a community, and that community, or in Facebook they have a thing called a group. This is usually topic-based discussion. So when it comes to the point of finding people that are talking and communicating about a similar topic or concept, then I think there's really nothing more valuable than these particular community type things.
Well, Ronnie, that's why I think, that's why when I first discovered it, I thought, well, this could be used in medicine because, as you know, medicine has many specialties and niches. For example, anesthesiology, cardiology, whatever. I envision, and I'm going to try actually to form communities based around certain medical niches and hopefully get. The one thing I see is that I think Guy Kawasaki talked about this. He says that Google Plus attracts people of passion, and he talks about that in his book. I think Google Plus. Scott would probably know the name. You guys would probably know the name of it.
What's the plus?
What's the plus? Yeah. He talks about that, how Google Plus is for people with passion. And I think the same, hopefully I can apply the same thing to each particular community in medicine, like cardiology or whatever, is to meet a compassionate cardiologist who loves the internet. And you guys know that it's different when you're dealing with people with passion because they work hard, just like you guys work hard because you love what you're doing. I work hard because I love what I'm doing. And I think if we get a cardiologist that's really passionate about Google Plus and Google Hangouts, I think it'll work to learn about what's going on in cardiology, the news. Also, I think it can be monetized possibly through offering of conferences. I think as time goes on, we're going to see more conferences that'll be telecast on Hangouts because it's so much less expensive. And yeah, Sarah Hill talks about this. I don't know if you know her, Ronnie. You've probably seen her around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's pretty prominent, it seems. But she talks about that. Scott told me about a video that she made. I watched it, and she said, you don't need a satellite truck anymore. And you did that too in Austin with your mobile Hangouts. You don't need a satellite truck anymore. You just need a mobile setup.
Right. The ability to, if you think about a convention or a conference, many people spend a lot of their time actually traveling to get there. And there's a lot of expense involved with that. And I'm not saying that needs to disappear, but sometimes it's beneficial to allow people to virtually be in there, plug in when they need to see the things that they need to see, and hopefully do some type of interaction, and then move on to the other tasks for their day. And it's also very feasible that a certain speaker, a person that normally you would never be able to get to come to your conference because of the cost as well as the time that they need to take away from what they normally are doing, they could actually come and be a featured speaker projected right on the screen in front of the room without ever having to leave their hometown. And that can reduce the expense as well as the time outlay to bring in some of these very special people into a convention where you normally would never be able to get them to show up.
And one of the phenomena that have surfaced actually within the last year and a half is that there are people who have the same affinity for a topic, and they get to know each other through such as Hangouts. They feel like they know each other, and then they cross paths at a convention, and it's as if they've known each other in real life all along. They just pick up where they left off, and there isn't that period of time where they're getting to know each other and feeling each other out and checking. It's that they can just hit the ground running, and it makes it a far more valuable bonding and network experience once they do cross paths at a convention or a similar activity.
Right. Well, I'm actually doing that now, and I guess it's a little self-promotion on my part. But the conference that I'm going to share the screen here that'll show the conference that I use that concept that Ronnie was talking about getting people that weren't able to make it. And I'll actually point out the people that really said that to me. That said they couldn't make it, couldn't come to the conference for them, but I'll be glad to do a hangout. So that's exactly what you're talking about, Ronnie. Let me.
Yeah.
Can you guys see it up there? No, you don't. Yeah.
We can right now. We can see the video player, but before that, we saw the calendar. So I think if you scroll down a little bit, we'd be able to see that calendar.
That's what it did. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. Just exactly what you're talking about, Ronnie. We have a gentleman. Let's see, Leslie Garson here on the 18th. He's an anesthesiologist from California, and he said exactly that to me. He says, geez, I was contacted by the conference heads, but I just, I couldn't make it. So through the technology of the Hangout, we're able to bring Leslie, who uses Google Glass in the OR. He's an anesthesiologist, so he'll be able to share his experiences, which is in the OR with Google Glass. So that's tremendously enriching to the conference people, that they'll be able to see this guy that normally they couldn't see him because he couldn't go there. But because of Hangouts, they're able to do that. Pause.
I was saying that's pretty amazing stuff. The ability to the concept that I'm talking about, you're already doing, and you're seeing that it really does work because these people are busy, just like everyone out there is busy. And sometimes that information is very valuable and ties exactly into what's going on, but they just couldn't make it. And if you offer this different portal for that information to come through, you are giving benefit to not only the presenter, but also those that are attending to get that information they would not be able to get otherwise.
Yes, and let me just touch on another thing that you said, Ronnie, about the Hangout being a meeting room. And in medicine, there are certain, I guess they call them silos. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term. Where you have. Are you guys familiar with that term?
Yeah, it's almost like a niche or a niche.
Yeah,
It's just a category of type of information or a space focused on a topic.
Right. Well, that's what in medicine we do the same thing. Sometimes we stay in our niche, like of ER, we stay just in ER. Or laboratory, we just stay in a lab. Now, on the 21st is a doctor I had to hang out with today, Albert Huang. He's a doctor that's doing a fellowship in medical devices. And I mentioned that concept of being in a room. Now, he's a designer of Google Glass. He designs the shape of them, the size of the screen, et cetera, et cetera. So he'll be able to get into a hangout room with a doctor that has an idea for maybe an application or for changing the actual design of Google Glass, because it's not going to stay the same. It's just a starter. It's going to change shape depending upon how the doctor needs it, and he'll be working. I'm trying to get him maybe to work in a hangout room with doctors that can talk to them face to face, And like Sarah Hill said, it's like human media. It's like, we're talking face to face. So we're not just throwing emails at each other, talking about ideas. We're kind of, working on an idea face to face. And that's a beautiful part of this tech.
Well, the Affordable Care Act calls for coordinated care and specifically breaking down the barriers between, that silos create between the disciplines, so that at the end of the day, the health care that the patient has is more efficient and cost effective, and readmissions lowered. And there's just no one silver bullet that can accomplish it. It requires, all sorts of different moving parts, but the moving parts need to communicate together. So it's exactly like the multiple capabilities that Google Plus provides. Not only the Hangout, which is what we're doing right now, but there are collaboration tools in Google Drive and just any number of other things that are going along. You alluded to Google Glass, which may have an important role to play. So it's an exciting time to be alive, and we are the early adopters. We're at the tip of the sword and can see it very clearly, and just excited that people, are being able to see what we've been able to experience and to join us. It's just going to be great.
Well, it's revitalized my love of medicine, really, and because I've talked with really good people all over the place. So, Ronnie, what do you see in the? I know it seems to me in the short time that I've been on Hangouts, there's been improvements. So where do you see Google Hangouts going in the future?
I see in there's sort of diverging paths. There is more of acceptance of the ease of use of the tool because it's becoming more and more common that people have done it. For example, when I used to travel and I'd say I teach people how to use Hangouts, they'd say, "What's that?" Nowadays, when I travel and I say the same thing, they say, "Oh yeah, I have someone who does a Hangout." And so the acceptance of the concept of using them has grown. And so I see that becoming more and more prevalent, so that people, just like when they say, instead of saying, "I'll meet you on Skype," they'll say, "Well, let's do a Hangout." So the concept, I think, of growth for the general population, I think, is growing. The other part I think that's very exciting for the viewers that might be watching this now is the specialization, meaning what can you do with a Hangout that is unique in your particular field of expertise that's going to set you apart from someone else, or allow a function that was harder to do or more expensive to do to become more prevalent because it's less expensive. Because you got to remember the fact this is free. We're not paying anything to do this video conferencing. So it's very feasible in my mind for doctors to do consultations across the world just because someone has a computer connection to the internet, and whether at some point they're going to bring back the ability to let the Google Glass show in a Hangout. Right now it's sort of in a hiatus, I would say, but it's probably going to come back, or there will be some degree where the ability for what the surgeon might be seeing can be seen by others that are assisting in the surgery. And that option, maybe I don't know if it's popular in medicine, but I would see that would be something that would be incredibly valuable when you need to get another set of eyes on what's going on, and you need their experience in your particular environment, and you could do that inside of a Hangout environment without all this extra cost that you would have with other type of video conferencing things. That, to me, I think is a wonderful direction for this to move.
Well, that in fact was being used before they took Hangout off, and a few physicians were doing that. Just like you said, you were consulting specialists. For example, if they ran across a problem with nerves, they would consult a neurosurgeon. They did that in a few cases before Google pulled the plug. I think it was last September, wasn't it? Around then that they stopped putting Hangouts on Google Glass.
I can look it up. I don't remember the exact time.
No, it's not that important. Yeah. I think it was around that.
The reasoning they were giving is that they were saying the video experience was not up to par what they wanted it to be, and so I think they need to make a bit more change or improvement in the ability for this little device that might be sitting on your head to handle all the activity that it needs to be able to do in order to stream video. Because it's a little odd to say this, but we take for granted the fact that we're having a video conversation from 3 different parts across the world, or across the country in this case, with just clicking a couple buttons with our regular computers. So that, if you would think about that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that was just like Neverland. That was science fiction stuff. Now it's here.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to follow on in terms of a use of Google Glass that I think is acceptable and available today in medicine, and that is if you're talking with a healthcare provider, a doctor, with Google Glass, if he or she has that on, he or she can look at you as a patient in the eye continuously, and if need to refer to something, just kind of look up a little bit to where the display is to get the medical records or for something to be recorded, and all of a sudden you've almost doubled the amount of time that FaceTime that you might have with a patient. Otherwise, it's going down and burying the face in the electronic medical records and then coming back and having that divided attention.
Well, I think I talked about with you the other day about Augmetics. It's a program that does exactly that. It's a application in Google Glass where the doctor does not have to write into the medical records. It's taken down automatically, I guess through Dragon. It's not totally accurate, but they'll get there. And it also takes a video of the patient, and the doctor doesn't spend any time looking at the chart or looking at the iPad. Nowadays it's iPad. Most docs use iPads. Rather than inputting the EHR, they're just, like you say, they're kind of looking at the patient, maybe looking up a little bit now and then when they have to retrieve a record or a past record. But when I ran across that app in Google Glass, I said to myself, man, this Google Glass is going to affect a lot of doctors, and not just the niche, like you guys, I'm sure, have seen the surgery things that have been done. But I think this program, they're out of Seattle, I believe. It's called Dignity Health, and the program's called Augmetics.com. It's tremendous. It looks like a tremendous. And they're going to be presenting at the conference at the end of this month. That's another shameless plug.
So as far as future for Hangouts, there's something that's relatively recently happened, and that has to do with lowering the barrier to entry. So the ability for people to start using this tool without having to download software is right on the horizon. In fact, it's available for certain browsers if you're at that level. But soon it'll be available for probably all browsers. And so what all that means is that if someone is brand new to using this tool, this Hangout broadcasting tool, they don't have to go about downloading software and doing things like that. They simply need to create an account and bang, click OK. I'll let this thing use my camera, and you're ready to go. So the lowering of the barrier to entry, the increased quality of the stream, and the fact that it's becoming more and more ubiquitous, it's just showing up all kinds of places, I think is part of the future. And I would not be surprised if people eventually get to the point where when they're working regularly with others, they're going to have a Hangout on almost all the time. And all they need to do is look over at that computer and say, hey, Scott, I got a question for you. And it turns out that Scott might be 6,000 miles away, and Scott is instantly there saying, yeah, Ronnie, what's up? And we've got our interactive activity right there almost all day long.
Just as if you're in the next office or the next cubicle.
Yeah, like sticking your head up over the divider between people, except it's even closer than that.
Doctors might do that someday. They might, just have the computer on in one of his rooms, and when he wants to consult with the patient, he just goes in the room and talks. That's his channel, kind of. Yeah. I guess they'll have to get through security. Oh, that's another question that I have for Ronnie about the security levels. You think it would be possible to work with Google engineers and getting a Google Plus community to have like levels of security which you can't reach? You can reach all. I know you can reach your mastery because you pay a fee and you enter the mastery group. But do you think you can make it so tight that a doctor and a patient can interact and be HIPAA compliant? You think we might reach that day with Google Plus and Google Community?
That's you're talking in an area that I don't understand fully, meaning the HIPAA requirements and the legalities behind it. So with that said, all I can say is the ability to feel like you are, and know that you are in a secure environment and there's nobody else watching. I believe they can do that. Whether that's going to reach to the certain degree of approval
Yeah,
that's
to make
going
them happy.
to do everything that's needed for the lawyers to get out of the way.
Right.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Well, they did it with Google Health. So I think if you have, of course, if I tried to do it, it wouldn't work. But if Google tried to do it, I think it'd be a different story. If they got sat down with a HIPAA people and said, hey, let's make a secure connection between doctors and patients, and let's make it on Google Communities. I think it's from my end, it's doable. I think I could get people attracted to joining communities if they knew they could connect with their doctors.
Right. Well, the legal profession is starting to use Hangouts, and they do have. I was able to get Google to give us what we call a reasonable expectation of privacy statement, which allowed the lawyers to publish that in essence, so that they could determine whether this is going to work for their law practice or not. And the idea is, it's simple. Simple. If I need to have a consultation with my client, I
Right.
can schedule it just like I would normally schedule, but instead of having to deal with the travel and the parking and the traffic, it's just done from computer to computer. We have our meeting. If we need to, we can record it so that we have a record of it, and then we move on to our other tasks. So the ability to feel comfortable that you're in a private environment and nobody's really spying on you what's going on, I think that's there already. It's just that degree of HIPAA compliance, or whatever the proper terminology is, that I'm going to leave to the lawyers. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, you can't do much without HIPAA as far as patient communication. But as far as education, I think we're there now. We can use Hangouts certainly for education. The problem with doctors they run into is if you diagnose or you mention someone's name, or you treat someone, that's when you get into kind of gray areas. But if you strictly limit it to education, you're okay, and you don't mention names and stuff.
Mhm.
But okay, well, Ronnie, I think you covered a lot of things. I really appreciate you coming out tonight, and Scott, you coming out, and hopefully we'll have more Hangouts in the future, and we'll keep you apprised of how we're progressing and integrating this wonderful platform into medicine. I think medicine will be better off if it's incorporated, and it just takes us to push it, I think. So, gentlemen, say good night.
It's a pleasure.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Okay,
you very
bye.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, good night. I'm turning the camera off.